Well, I had a cup of coffee this morning, and that's rather. It's been a few weeks, but so like I'm all hyped up right now. So this should be interesting.
Perfect.
Yeah. Listen, I guess we kind of wanted to start this off because listen to Jordan B. Peterson and I think his name is Daryl Farrell.
Yep.
Talk about the necessity of fathers. I think it's been kind of interesting to, I guess, see us. In my opinion, like this is just kind of like the form of like this relationship and how I've seen it develop. Is that we took interest in being friends, became best friends, and our stories kind of overlapped in the aspect that we had absent fathers in one way or the other. You being that didn't have a father present, me being that I didn't really have. I had a father who was physically present, but not usually mentally or emotionally present.
Right.
And to hear them talk about it, and this has been an ongoing thought of mine, also which is kind of weird, but it kind of ties everything together, is that like people have this fear of like AI. So where's the direction that it's going to take society, and how is it that society is going to deal with it? And, how can you make sure that dealing with AI, putting AI into society today, it's a matter of who's behind coding it. It's not a matter of the AI in itself. So currently, we're at a period in time where it's the coder, not the AI. That's the threat.
Until it's a self-propelled kind of model.
Right, exactly. So, I guess I've gotten this, sense of just, hearing it repeated over from Joe Rogan is that it needs to be instilled in, morals, ethics, and values with people who are coding this stuff have to be in that mindset to not code something that would cause damage or harm. And everyone's always wondered, how do you make sure that doesn't happen? And I truly do feel that has to come from parents. And I think that having a father absent in somebody's life is something that can easily push someone into, say, a negative. It puts the odds against them of having, the most positive future. So it's pretty proven. You can't say that the exact cause of absent fathers has been some of the damage for society, but it's definitely true when you're looking at divorce rates and stacking them against something like why school shootings only as a recent phenomenon. And where over the years of where school shootings have become a thing, so have larger divorce rates. Right. And so something I wanted to get on a call to discuss this, because this is kind of, I feel, where the future is pulling me towards, and where I think that the charitable portion of what we can do for society, or our contribution of value, can be pulling toward that direction, which is why I've seen so much interest in myself of all the family content that's been coming out from Gary Vee. Just loving the stuff that he's producing about the families, because it's really pulling on all my strings, just like that's hitting close to home. That's where I need to see.
And it was funny because we talked about that last time, and literally right after there was 3 posts back, or 3 podcasts,
exactly what we were talking about. Yep. And I've heard stuff coming from him, from the mother who asked him a question when he was there. He was sitting down about going to college, how you can't tell him, force him into going to college or whatever. And that was something that it was my choice, but I didn't feel like it was my choice. I wasn't given that I was told that this is what you want to do, kind of a thing. And it made me resent my father to a degree growing up. And I think that he put it perfectly, in that he probably should have stated this to her, but she already knew it well enough. I know that is that if you force him to go to college, he's going to resent you in the future. And stuff like that is on small parenting things. And then he got into touch base on the negative side of that his father was, and he completely understands that came from his his father's parents, who were much more negative, he said that he didn't spend time with his grandmother because she was toxic because of the fact that she was just too negative.
Yep.
And he just didn't let it get to him. And he credits that to his mother about just being so positive. And that's true for myself as well. My mother is so positive. I give her a lot of credit for, or even myself, my brother and sister are the way that we are, is because of the fact that how positive she was when my father was on the other spectrum of being, you know, a little bit more negative. And it's not to bash, but it has a lot to do with your surrounding. You are a product of your environment. And my father's overcome a lot from the negative environment that he was raised into a kid to becoming, you know, the father that he was today. And it was a lot of, like, giving a lot of credit to overcoming all the stuff that he did. And
yeah, and I think one of the keys that he brings up
being
when he
in
talks,
direction.
yeah, when he says kind of like, you know, don't kind of force or pressure them into something. It's more of like encourage them to do kind of what they want. But then the kind of flip side, the key to it was, but once they committed to that, kind of hold them accountable. So where you know, where he was like, you know, he got praised for opening a door for a lady, but, you know, he still got punished when he got D's and F's, even though his mom knew he probably wasn't going to go through college and stuff. That was still something that he had a commitment to.
Yeah, and that,
I think that's
to me, that's like, yeah, that's so much foresight to see for a mother like that to still punish for the fact that he's not keeping up with something that might not be his choice of what he wants to do, but it's still something that he's actively partaking in, so he should be doing it fully.
Right.
Yeah. To tie in what I was going to say is just to say that I think we've been pulled in a direction where we've been put together, had absent fathers. There is a growing sense of like there's a growing awareness that AI might not be the most beneficial or thing for society. So in order to, the best way to proactively go about that, and this is just in general for society as well, I think that there needs to be more morals, ethics, and values instilled in men and women from a fatherly perspective. And I think that to encourage fathers to do this and to encourage children that if they had a hard time with their father in their past, that they can still overcome all this.
Right.
I kind of believe that that's the direction that, from a charitable pursuit of the business side that we want to pursue, should be, you know, kind of focusing on.
Definitely. I like that idea because it's definitely something that kind of applies to both of us and something that kind of hits close to home for both of us. And I see a lot of value in pushing that kind of agenda, pushing that side of things.
Yeah, I think that's like where I've known I wanted to have some sense of like a positive role in society for pushing something. So I don't want to take this on in a negative manner. You know, I want to be a source of encouragement in this aspect, not a source of me dwelling on my past. You know, so it's I want to see this as from a perspective of the lives I'm going to change because of the past I had, as opposed to using this as a platform to rant about the past that I've had or the past that you've had.
Right.
Which is one of the things that I didn't get to experience you when you were growing up without a father, but you got to experience me when I was going through, you know, most of my struggles with my father. So it's definitely an interesting perspective, whereas you saw that this was a bigger care that I wanted to partake in, then I didn't really know how much, or I would actually even probably for the first time ever ask your opinion on whether you want to pursue this as something, because this is only something that's been put on my heart recently, and I've only just recently seen that it's I believe a path that we should pursue. So for the first time, like you just said that you think this is a good idea as well, but I've never asked your opinion on even talking about it or much of anything. I do remember saying to you that this was like 4 or 5 years ago that we were like sitting in our living room on Sunnyside in Philly, and I said, here I am complaining about my father when you grew up and you never had one. And I think that that's probably like maybe the closest conversation that we ever had to, you know, to discussing that, I guess.
No, yeah, and I am certainly not opposed to discussing it because, I mean, I feel like it's a little different for me, right? Because it's like I never had one, so it's not like I have, you know, strong, you know, memories or super strong feelings like someone who was there and then wasn't, or, you know, things like that.
Right.
So, and I'm definitely not opposed to discussing it. It's kind of funny if you ask my mom, she'll probably be like, it had no effect on me because,
Right.
or at least no, like huge, like big, you know, visible effects. Cause she used to say that all the time cause, I used to play it up cause I was a kid, right? So however I can play it up to kind of get what I want was kind of how I used to do it, you know, when I was younger. So I'd be like, oh, I'm all sad cause I don't have a dad. Blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, my mom would, you know, get me something, whatever I was trying to get, you know. And then we actually went to, like, therapy at one point, and the therapist was like, you know, went to my mom, she told me this later, and was like, stop letting him play you. It doesn't affect him as much as he lets on.
Right.
So, it's interesting. Like, but I can see from, like, philosophical point of views, like, where we can go from, you know, our experiences, because listening to that podcast that you sent me, I was like, like, yeah, I can see where this kind of plays into who I've become, not necessarily in ways that people might think, you know? Not in the standard ways of like, oh, he doesn't have a father, blah, blah, blah. But like, the more philosophical or psychological ways, I think that definitely ties in.
Yeah, I would, not to bash the psychologist who said that, but I think that you definitely utilize that. And I'm almost kind of, I guess kids will try anything they can to get attention, right?
Yep.
So like you learn how to survive in your environment. And it was very like, I'd say it's pretty innovative what you did to learn how to manipulate like your mom. Like that's not something that I would see a child just being, but I guess it is. Like I don't have kids yet, and I guess it'll be something that I'll experience to see how creative they can become to get attention. But I'm for sure I believe that you definitely overblown that. But behind that, I know that there was definitely a desire as well. So it's not to take away completely the fact that you were just utilizing it. Like it was definitely there, but you used it as an advantage to you to get what you want for sure.
Right. It was the extreme of it. The extreme that I portrayed outwardly was not necessarily the extreme I was feeling on the inside.
Right.
It's very interesting, you know, like stuff like this. And like I said, that podcast was kind of eye opening, you know, like you hear you hear all these psychological things and it's all like basic stuff where they had a whole like segment about like rough and tumble play and how that affects you and like stuff like that, how you don't think like something as small as that would be that formative. But it definitely, I mean, it clearly is, you know?
Right. Yeah, it's crazy. He was talking about how it builds a lot of empathy in children. Build empathy in, you know, the roughhouse and play. And then, you know, build that self-awareness or awareness of other people, how they react to certain things, if they should be. Yeah. If they're crying, what it is, how you react to that. Like, all right, that was too tough. And then you know, or if, you're playing, you're like, okay, I could push a little bit harder, you know, so it's like, it teaches you boundaries of how to interact with other beings as well as it teaches empathy for the other person, you know, if something were to occur, like a problem or getting hurt or whatever.
Right. It was kind of funny when he was like, yeah, my kid would get hurt and make the other, or like my kid would make the other one cry. And then he noticed that like whenever that happened, the other kid would look away because he was kind of like ashamed or whatever. And then he'd be like, no, look at her. Like, look at what she did.
Yeah.
That was kind of interesting. It almost sounded like I'm sure from the outside it was like, ooh, like that's a little extreme, but it makes sense. Like, you have to own up. It's kind of teaching that person to own up to your mistakes from, childhood.
Yeah, and that can also connect to, that also rang a bell for me to think that that's a way to teach kids how to behave online. If you're at a young age in social interactions, you teach them to see the hurt of another. It might it might deter them from making a rude comment online later on down the road because they know so-and-so was really upset when I did this back in the past. Face to face, maybe I shouldn't say it online just because of the fact that I have the ability to hide from their reaction.
Right. Yeah, and I saw something kind of related with, I think that Gary Vee put out yesterday. I saw it on Instagram. He probably put it out before then, but he was talking, someone asked him, like, how do you deal with kids that are so addicted to their phones that they can't communicate, with people in front of them? And he kind of like flipped it like he usually does and was like, I think that they probably communicate better than anyone. They're just not communicating with you. They're communicating with someone else. Yeah. They're not interested in communicating with you. That's why they're on their phone. They're talking with someone else from, somewhere else. And they have that ability and that connection because of technology that they can talk to someone else even if they're out in the room.
Yeah, that was the funniest thing when he said that. It made me think like, yeah, kids all along have just wanted to be, if so a grown up was telling them about something, they just wanted to like disconnect and not listen for so long, but they had to because they had nothing else to do. And nowadays children have kids, adults, teens, whoever, because adults do it too. Go out to dinner, you're not interested, you look at your phone. So it's a thing, it's just like, it's a social sign of saying like, yeah, I'm not interested. And kids just do it right off the bat. So it's like what becomes, sure, it's partially addiction, but it's also at the same point, it's also where's the priority and what holds more interest.
Right. It's just, I remember my mom just saying like, go play with your friends, like go outside, like go do something with your friends instead of being on like Xbox, all the time. But like the thing was, I was on Xbox talking with all my friends, just because we weren't in the same place at the same time. We were still communicating and socializing and things like that. I would say that it's not wrong that, just communicating that way does make for more awkward or not as developed, face-to-face interactions. So it's definitely not discounting that, you might underdevelop on face-to-face communications, but you're still communicating. You're not just a quiet kid who's sitting in the corner on his phone, not, playing games or whatever. You're usually communicating with other people. Yeah.
I think people take things for like as an ultimatum, like one or the other more so than they should. Like everything is a balance for sure. And it's like, yeah, there's definitely some weight to that question, but at the same time, I think it's more of people's judgment than it is anything, just because there's a social trend that's changing. And there's a positive and negative to being on your phone out in public or during a conversation, and there's a positive or a negative, to like to video games and whatnot and losing connection. Like there's going to be benefits and there's also going to be, negative side effects of it as well. It's just something you have to see both sides. Nothing is one or the other, and majority of things in life is just all about a balance. It's like finding the right balance. Because it's important for kids nowadays to learn how to communicate technologically and over text messaging, because to me, texting is one of the hardest things for me to do with my wife is have a conversation over text and not trying to read into what they said. It's like probably one of the easiest ways to start like an argument, like, or just like to build tension. It's like, well, what were you being passive right there, or like was that sarcasm? I'm confused.
His tone doesn't come across. Yeah. Right.
So it's important to learn to communicate because it's the way of that the future is heading in that sense. And it's also important to communicate also, interactions in person. So it's both sides are important. So you have to learn when to balance, you have to learn to balance it. You have to learn both sides. You have to learn to balance it, and you have to learn how one's negative and one's positive. So where texting is negative to have certain conversations, don't have those conversations over text. Like learn the balances of it. And I think if you're doing that earlier on as a child, that's probably best. But at the same extent, sometimes children need to be given the direction of like, okay, this conversation isn't meant to have over a text, or this you're meant to call or go see your friend. So if, as a parent, say someone said, like, your child said something negative to someone online, you'd be like, that was very inappropriate. You know, I can't believe you said that to this individual, and it's something that you need to apologize for. And they're like, all right, I'll text them right now. It's like, no, you have that apology in person so that you can see how you're actually affected.
Right. Yeah. It's just so interesting to think that, you know, where it's interesting how behind things get, right? Where, you know, when we were kids, oh, you're playing video games all day and you're talking to nice people online, blah blah blah. Like, you're not doing anything. You need to go outside, because our parents, their generation was, you go outside, you hang out with friends, blah blah blah. And so, you know, and we're like always like one step behind, like, because when we were kids, we probably would have developed even faster if parents were like, you're communicating online, that's good. Like, now, like where it is nowadays, where people are like, oh, communication online is not necessarily a bad thing. But we're always like a step behind. So it's interesting to see that. And like, just to think about how, like, you know, kids back in the day where there wasn't all this technology, you wouldn't have a 14-year-old starting their own business unless it was a lemonade stand, because they didn't have the resources. But now you could have a 14-year-old kid that's just like on his phone pushing out YouTube videos or, you know, Facebook content and things like that, and suddenly he's got his own, you know, thriving business. Like, it's just, it's not all necessarily negative that your kid is on his phone all day long. You know, he could be starting a business and you don't even know it.
Yeah. It's like the kid that makes millions of dollars unboxing toys on YouTube or something. It's like, it's incredible.
Right. And I'm sure his parents, you know, at first was like, all right, it's like, you're kind of wasting time. Why don't you go play with your friends? You're just making videos all day long.
Or at the same time, they're like, you're a child. I want you to limit your privacy online. And I don't want you putting yourself out there to everybody in the world. Like, I'm sure that was a conversation that existed throughout all of that, you know, and it's realizing the fact that there's opportunity out there, and there's like a sense of somebody to build at such a young age, their net worth, which is something that I've had a conversation with Courtney. It was like, how would you, like, when I heard that, I was like, what would you do if we had like a 12-year-old who started a YouTube thing and made millions of dollars? To me, that was like I don't think I could give them, I don't know if I would, like, how much access do you give them to all that money? Or it's like, how do, you know, it's like, what do you, you know? So it was just like, to me, it was a very interesting thing to ponder, put it that way.
Yeah, and you won't know until you get to that point. And then you won't know at that point either, you know? Like, even after the fact, it'll be...
No, yeah, because
it'll always be in hindsight.
Yeah,
right.
For sure.
It'll always be I should have done this, I should have done that.
Right.
You know?
I think that being a good steward of your money is, you know, is just, and if you are a good steward of your own money, it'll help the kid learn. It's the same thing, instilling values, morals, you know, ethics into a child is going to help them lead, and they're going to make mistakes with that money. And I think it's probably more important that they learn it at a younger age than it would be at an older age. You know, like, there's certain things that you could definitely protect them from. Be like, yeah, this isn't good, or that's not whatever. You know, like, there's going to be things that at a kid at 12 years old isn't going to know how to manage millions of dollars.
Right.
You know, at my age, I'm only learning just now how to manage X amount of dollars. Is, you know, who's the best resource for this? Who's the best, you know, where am I supposed to invest my money? So it's like, you could definitely teach a 12-year-old that. And it'll take them a few years to get a basis. And at my age, 26, they could have the same knowledge that I had at 26 that they might have at 16. You know, so it's like, it gives every time a kid achieves something, it gives you the opportunity to teach them something else to build on top of that knowledge. And it's really about reducing time frames. And I think that's how we're making society younger is if we can continue to teach kids, children, just reducing the time frame of information. And that's why I don't feel that there are certain things that we just shouldn't hold back from utilizing as a point to educate kids on.
Right.
I'm not a parent yet, so I can't wait to see how this is all going to play out. And I say certain things, and then, I know there's a parent out there laughing, and it's going to be one of those things. It's like, I'll tell you when I get there kind of a thing. But as of right now, that's my opinion, like you say, hindsight's 20/20. We'll see when I get there. I'll be able to laugh at myself one day too,
Right. I mean, I think the best that you can do is go in having some idea of what you want and try to execute. Half the time it won't work, half the time it will. Yeah. I think that's. I mean, and I think the key with kids, from what I've seen and from what I've heard, and stories of successful kids and things like that, it's about two things, which is teaching them through by showing them, following what you do, setting a good example, not necessarily saying, hey, do this, but if they see you doing something good and they see the positive outcomes from that, they're going to follow that. And then I think the second thing is allowing them to learn on their own. Here, I'm going to set you up, for this. If you fail, you fail, and you deal with the consequences,
Yeah.
I think those are the two key things.
Yeah, because that was something that a kid at such a young age has to learn strictly by learning from their environment. So they're taking everything in, they're absorbing everything, absolutely everything, through as many senses as they can. And that's how they're learning, and then that's how they're going to be behaving as well. So it's almost, I'll introduce this saying as early as this, and this will be continually something that I say, is that parents spend their whole lives trying to protect their children when they don't realize that they're the biggest threat. So it's one of those things that at such a young age, I was absorbing negative behavior from my father and how he was talking to my mom or how he was talking to other people. It's very, very evident because myself, my brother, my sister all turned out the same to social interaction. So which is
interesting too, because it goes one of two ways, right? It goes, oh, this is what I observed, so this is what I'm going to do as well. I'll do the same thing. Or you do the complete opposite. This is what I observed, I didn't like it, so I'm going to do the opposite.
Yep, exactly. And that's exactly what happened for all three of us, myself and my brother and sister, is that we saw certain social interactions that my father had and said that he talks so much and gets himself into trouble that if we just don't talk at all, we can't possibly get into trouble. And then it went too far the one way to say that now it's perceived as just being shut off or being antisocial, if almost a RBF, if someone walks in the room and they just look at you oh, that person doesn't want to talk to me. So it's you have to be careful with how far you go with one thing, because you could take everything to the extreme. So it's always about finding that balance. So I've been trying to rework myself with going from introvert, but introvert's the way that I recover. I recover in myself to now realizing that I want to talk to people, and the value getting to talking to people is worth so much more than the value of just trying to keep to myself.
Right. So it's funny that you called yourself an introvert, right? Because, and I've noticed this, if I met you, right, and, we met for the first time, and, someone was to ask me after that interaction, hey, was he an introvert or an extrovert? I'd probably say an extrovert, right? But I think it's funny because that's kind of what happens with me, right? Where I take those, those tests that tell you if you're an introvert or an extrovert, and it always comes out extrovert. But when I think of myself, I'm I'm definitely introverted. You you can be an introverted extrovert. It's interesting.
Yeah. So this is, I don't know any of the tests that you've read about it, but the way that I take introverted and extroverted is that it's the way that you recover as an individual. So if you recover and in a social platform, you're extroverted. If you recover internally, like on an introspective, I guess is the word, on an introspective level, then that's introverted. So I know that I recover with time thought to myself. If you were to put me in a room where I don't know anybody, I wouldn't really talk much to anybody. Like that.
Yep, me
but
too.
I take that as something that to me is something that was created from observed behavior more so than it has to do with my personality. So it's same, like if I met you to me, you're like you're the class clown type, like you go into a room once you start fitting and it's like you find your way and your presence in being the comic or the comic relief in the room.
Right. But that takes me a while. Like that's not like hey, I walk in and like, oh, that guy, like I walk in and I have to get used to people. And I'm also not good in big groups. I've realized that I went to, Addison's bachelor party this weekend and I realized that like, hey, I'm not good in big groups, but I'm really good in small groups. I'm also not great one-on-one. So like I have this little like middle ground, like, hey, if I'm standing there in, a little cluster of, 2-3 other people, I'm great. If I'm in a group of 10 guys, I'm probably going to be over there being quiet. And if I'm one-on-one, we'll have a conversation for a couple minutes and then I'll probably walk away. It's a weird middle ground.
Yeah, we're like it's funny to hear our perspective on each other because we've known each other for so long.
Right.
When we first met, probably we both saw each other as a little bit more introspective or introverted. And I'm the same way in social atmospheres as well. However, if the conversation is given an agenda, like we're meeting for a specific reason, like I'm the total extrovert in that. Like it's like like how you handle your clients is, I'm sure it's the same way. You have that commanding, like, we're here for an agenda, like this is what we're getting, this is the topic of conversation, and you're gonna you're gonna kill that conversation. I follow in the same footsteps. Like if someone's asking me for advice on something particularly, like I'll dominate like a one-on-one conversation. Like I'll absolutely love talking to that person, interacting with that person, giving that person advice. If it's a crowd of people, if I'm giving a talk, I probably won't be perceived as the same introverted. And I think that that's true for a lot of people, is that a lot of people actually who are social beings considered to be like social or extroverts on like a social platform, that they truly are introverted. And a lot of people have said that. And hearing a lot of them say that, they've said that they've had to learn how to be conversational or considered, in quotes, extroverted, because that's also, those two words are also not mixed up, but utilized in the wrong way.
Yeah, and I definitely agree about like having a direction. Like if there's like you said, I'm pretty good with clients, right? And like here's the agenda, here's what we got to accomplish, that kind of thing. I'm good with that. Yeah. If I have to go into a group and make small talk, that's not me. And
forget about it.
It probably sounds like I'm a dick, but like when I get into that mode, I really don't care. Like I don't care, that you went fishing last weekend. I don't care. And like I said, that probably makes me sound like a dick. Like I don't really care about you, but like it's just not interesting to me, and I don't care about spending my time that I could be doing something else, hearing about, oh yeah, I went fishing last weekend, I did this, I did that. Like, I don't care.
Yeah, I was going to say the same exact thing, on the sense that it's like, it's one of those things, like if I'm the same way in that aspect, is like, in choosing the friends that I hang out with, this is easy example to use, is like, who Courtney and I hang out with. It's easy for me to pick who I want to spend time with simply based off the conversations that we've had. That we've had over, dinner, or just like in social gatherings, like I've met them, and they'll talk about, oh, what was the sports game or whatever, or I was out partying this thing. And it becomes like, okay, they're not worth my time. So it's almost like a poor thing to say, but it's one of those things that you have to protect your time. And in the same sense, if that's not how you enjoy utilizing your time, then that's an individual that, okay, you have to learn how to overcome that in the moment, realize that this is and the same thing for myself. I've realized that this is something that I'm in a social atmosphere, I have to interact with people, and it's a good time to practice. It totally comes off as, prideful and one of those things, but it's plain and simply, you just don't get along with that person because you don't have the same interests. You're not a dick, it's just you realize that past this conversation, we're not going to have a relationship. So in reality, what's the ROI here? So it's one of those things where I think that we both have to learn to just love people so much, to take interest in no matter what it is that they say. If that's something that you love, that's awesome. This is great. And it just helps facilitate that conversation, or just because of the fact that that's what they're interested in.
Yeah, I think you're right in that, I think it's going back to thinking about how we have to thrive on other people's happiness. So if they're going on about, I was watching the golf match this weekend, blah, 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 and they're going on and on and on. You could tell it makes them happy. It might not be interesting to you, but I think the key is to just pull on their happiness. Oh yeah, this is what makes them happy, and that makes me happy that they're happy.
Yeah, for sure. It's one of those things that to me, I try and now utilize it as a learning experience. There's a guy who comes into the restaurant all the time, this delivery guy. He always talks about sports. So I try and keep up to date on certain things. If I don't go out seeking it online or watching the game, but if someone's talking about it, I'll be like, oh, what was the score? Or what was this? Just so I have a formal basis, of the ability to converse with someone who enjoys sports. They're like, oh, so-and-so traded, this, or did you see the Sixers, they're going up, but if they get past the seventh game, they're going to have a hard time, winning the championship, So it's one of those things. It's I was keeping up in conversation just from picking up from other people, just to be able to converse with more people. So it's one of those things that if you want to touch people on a basis of getting to their heart, you have to be relatable. So it's almost it's a responsibility to keep your knowledge as wide as possible and your understanding of things that are going on in order to be able to connect to things, because some people are going to thrive and connect with someone who can talk about the NBA game, or someone's going to thrive with someone who can talk about, the NHL playoffs that are going off. That's just, it opens the conversation to get one step closer into maybe what it is that they really want to hear.
Right. And I think that obviously this isn't just a random guy, because this guy comes in often. So you've built somewhat of a connection. You might not be best friends, but you built this connection where hey, you can expect to see this guy then, and you don't mind talking to him. And I think that you probably heard all this, for example, NBA stuff, you probably hear all this stuff all day long, but you don't kind of lock in on it and hold on to that knowledge. But because you care about having a conversation with this guy in the future, you're oh, let me remember that, subconsciously or not. So I think it's that awareness too, if you heard an NBA thing and you didn't have anyone that you think of that you should remember it for, you're probably not going to remember it. But if you're oh, the Sixers traded, you hear the Sixers traded so-and-so, you're oh, I'll have to talk about that with, Bob next time I see him.
Yeah. Yeah. And
so it's awareness.
Yeah. And so therefore, it kind of comes down to the individuals. How much do I care about the individual to hold a conversation with them?
Right.
And it's it definitely comes off as standoffish. But I think that everybody feels the same way, and that most people just aren't really willing to say that that's how it is for themselves. And a lot of people do care. I know some people that they need to know everybody and what everybody's doing and absolutely be at every party. And like, that's what's deep to them. That's what matters. You know, to me,
Right.
the conversation I want to hear is like, what struggle are you having? Like, where can I help
Right.
you? You know,
Where can I provide value to you? Yeah.
Right. How can I provide value? Because to me, I used to watch NHL all the time. I stopped watching sports, kind of eliminated NHL almost completely as well, to a point where it's like, it's no longer worth my time. Like, it's one of those things that's like,
that's kind of where I'm at too.
Yeah. It's like, what is the ROI on my time? And it's some people, but I've also realized that to some people, like, that's where a lot of their happiness is held in, like, it's held in the game, or if they win the World Series, if they win the Stanley Cup, you know, or the Super Bowl too. Like, I watch the Super Bowl almost usually just so I can have a conversation the next day about it. But it's like, to me, it's like, I'd rather listen to a podcast or go work on, you know, go work on the business. Like, it's just how it is. And it's not that it's a waste of people's time, because that's where they find enjoyment or joy, you know, fulfillment or happiness. But I do think that a lot more people in life would find more happiness if they utilize that time productively. Because tomorrow it's not going to have a big effect on their life who won the 7th game of the semifinals. Like, that's just not.
Yeah, and it's funny, that reminds me of this joke that the comedian Ryan Hamilton said, where he's also like not into sports, but he has a friend that is, and he talks about how like he was betting, you know, his friend was betting on, you know, LeBron to win something or whatever, and he was like super into it, and you know, the comedian's like, I don't really understand it, but he was super into it, and then whatever happens. And LeBron wins or whatever, and then the guy looks at the comedian and goes, you know, like, I gotta confess something, like, I prayed for LeBron to make that shot. I prayed for him to win, you know, that game, and I prayed for each individual member of that team to compete at their absolute best. And this is, you know, the comedian makes a joke of it and goes, you know, maybe you should reconsider the things you're praying for, because you just went through a divorce. Like, you know, goes through his whole, like, you know, you don't have a lot of money, like, stuff like that. So, like, that's what it kind of reminded me of. It's like, maybe you should reprioritize things if you're praying for each member of the basketball team to do their absolute best, kind of thing. Like, maybe just think about some other things in your life.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely one of those things. It's like, to me, it was when I started labeling my priorities in life, I realized that watching sports wasn't one of them. And it's like, how do you see yourself in the future? And then how are Gary Vee says it perfectly. Let your actions match your ambition. Plain and simple. Right. If you want to sit on the couch all day and like you just want to work a corporate job and come home and watch Netflix, and that's how you see your life amounting to, you know, if that's what makes you happy, so be it. Like, that's exactly what I want for you. Like, but if you're not happy doing that, then you've got to change something about your life. There's something you need to change in order to be more happy, more fulfilled. And sometimes it starts
and it's on you.
Cutting the world.
It's on you. It's not on anyone else, and you whining and being like, oh, my life's so unfair. You do something to change it.
Yeah. Yep.
So I actually have a question to go back to from when we were talking about stuff earlier, when we were talking about how kind of you and your siblings, you know, pulled from, you know, what you observed with your father. Do you think that so kind of like what I was saying before, that some siblings, you know, it could go either way. You might have one sibling that follows the father's, you know, actions and one sibling that doesn't. Do you think that you guys all went one direction because you had each other, because it was that like sibling bond?
I think it could have been, but I would also say that it was probably because we had a bond with my mother. So it was like the closer bond with my mother helped us go in a direction of more in her defense or in the way that she raised us.
Right.
So it was
I guess
definitely
it's kind of like a family in a family. Like, you had your family, but there was really this kind of closer family inside that.
Yeah, and to be honest, that's also part of the problem. Like, my brother, my sister, myself, my mom all grew so close together, like apart from him. So I think that he grew separate from the family for a lot of reasons, but that also contributed to, we also to an extent contributed to separating him from the family because we were so close, because he didn't involve himself. So it's like, it goes one of both.
It's like a loop. It's like a vicious cycle. Yeah.
Yeah. And to some degree, everybody's responsible. But in the same respect, every person's responsible for themselves. And that's just, like, if there's something that's not right, like, you have to get right with it.
Right. Yeah, that was just interesting to me to hear you say that, like, all three of your siblings kind of turned out the same way. That's not always the case.
Yeah. And it's like, but if you put myself, my brother, and my sister in an environment where we're going to thrive in people we know, we're totally, you won't ever tell that we're that we would be introverted in a different situation.
Right. I could agree with that.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah. Do you want to take this on a route of like business, what we're doing businessly as well?
Yeah, let's do that, because we had a lot to think about after our last call. So let's push forward with that.
All right. Well, I know we were supposed to be thinking about social media. How were we going to pursue each and individual page?
Yep.
Is that what you're referring to? I don't know if there's anything much more.
Yep. I think that's kind of the biggest thing right now is figuring that out. So I'll kind of give you my perspective. I think that, since we talked, and what we talked about and kind of what I've seen, I think it's probably best to pursue us as individuals, right? So we have our individual accounts. Obviously we have it, in our bio or whatever, like, whatever, executive at BeMor Media, whatever we decide to do. So there is that connection, but it's not what we talk about. Unless it's in this context where we're talking about, we have a podcast or whatever where we're talking about whatever comes up, and then we might talk about business,
Right.
So I think having our individual accounts would help. And then having, so say Thoughtful Foods has its own, obviously it's its own brand, it's going to push out its own things. And then I think that BeMor Media is just, I think it's just self-promoting. That's what I was thinking. Like where it would say, or it's I guess not self-promoting, it's probably not the best, but promoting its clients. So it's saying, hey, check out Thoughtful Foods, check out, the content that they're pushing out, that we're pushing out for them, and things like that.
Right. So, okay, we agree on certain things. So, I was going to ask you to elaborate on what you said by self-promoting. I think that this kind of, the basis of what we want to do lies in what we believe the pursuit of each account is. So, I've been thinking this week that BeMor, we want that BeMor Media is going to be, BeMor Media is going to be one of those things where it comes down to where our interest lies, right? So, as of right now, this is what I'm thinking. I want to utilize BeMor Media as a parenting company for any company that we produce. On this front, want to be and here's where I think this is going to be different for you and I. I want to utilize BeMor Media as something where we can pursue the start and execution of businesses. So starting, executing on creating ideas, starting those ideas, executing on those ideas, and then managing those ideas. And basically just managing businesses. So I want BeMor. The point is to create an infrastructure underneath of BeMor that can run the platforms for any company that we start in the future. So I'm not trying to not that I won't, the market will give way to whether or not any of this comes true. But I'm not one person who's going to want to start one project. I'm definitely going to be an inventor in some sense, a manager in another sense, a CEO in another. Like there's, to me, it's the reason why I want to create a parent company is so that I can pursue other ideas and I'm not limited to one thing. I also believe in not spreading yourself thin, but I think that we should start BeMor off as a parent company. I get to run the parent company and I'm going to want to have my hand in everything for sure. But I'm just trying to think this out, but I'm like, Jack Dorsey runs 2 companies, Twitter and Squarespace, is it? He runs Squarespace too? I
think so.
And some people think that because Twitter's traded on the stock market, there's a lot of people who are vested in Twitter that believe that the company would do a lot better if he gave all of his time to that. So they're 2 completely separate things. I want to be able to run BeMor Media as running subsets underneath of it. So it's one thing that you're running, a conglomerate. So almost like a Berkshire Hathaway, except just not traded publicly. So it's a private business where you either start ideas or buy business, whatever. It's just something to manage everything else on it. So BeMor Media is really the infrastructure to pursue ideas. Like that could be the description. If I had to put it into words right now, I guess that would be a description. So I said all that.
No, and I like that. Yeah, I like that. I think that makes sense. And I think we both have a similar personality and similar mindset where we're never doing one thing. And I would say that's my biggest downfall, actually, is that I try to do too many things, or I will start a project and I'll go all in on it. And this is kind of in the kind of web design realm, because that's obviously what I'm doing most of my work in. But I will start a project. I will be all in on it. I'll work on it for 8 hours straight one day. And then I'll have another idea. And then suddenly that one's it's on the back burner for a little bit. So where my projects could take a month, 2 months, whatever to get done, they end up taking, twice that time because I'm like, oh, but what about this idea? And then I go all in on that one. I come up with tons of ideas and then I go all in really quickly. And then I come up with another one, I go all in really quickly. And I need to work on executing them all to completion, even if it's simultaneously executing them all to completion. That's definitely my biggest downfall, and that will have to be considerate of, as we move forward.
I'm definitely glad that you brought that up. That's something that I've struggled with my entire life. And I think that I've came to the conclusion, if someone were to come to me, people ask this to Gary Vee all the time, and I kind of forget what he was saying, what he says to him, but this is my opinion on it that I've, from my own experiences, derived. If you're in pursuit of a project and you jump from one idea to the other idea, I don't think you're meant to do that first project. Plain and simple.
Right.
It's just if you're all right, I'll go ahead for this. I've worked on every single project until I got to a point where it was either, okay, you either go seek funding for this or this project is out of your intelligence. Or you have to go recruit somebody for this. So you have to partner with someone. So I've tried to partner with people who I knew in my world that could help me pursue. And when that part is not being able to partner failed, or not desiring to go seek funding at that point in my life. So it's I didn't care. I don't know if I didn't care to go seek funding for certain projects because I didn't ever want to, maybe it's selfishly, I just didn't ever care to go ask. I don't like asking people for money. So I realized that wasn't a time in my life where I was going to be pursuing that project because I didn't desire to do it. So I wanted to create transitional windows, tinted windows, transitional tinted windows that
Yeah, I remember that.
worked through dichroic and electrochroic dyes. And I got to a point where someone told me that their friend who worked for Saint-Gobain just bought a company that was doing that. And I was working on it in college. And they did it through dichroic and electrochroic gels or something like that. And I was like, oh, that's a good idea. And all. So like that kind of put an end to my project right then and there. And so there was that. Then there was like board shorts. I ran into a problem with who I thought was going to be the best person to, this goes back to meeting with this guy to pursue board shorts as an idea. Was when I met with him, I knew intuitively that he wasn't the guy to do it because of his lack of attention from me. But I valued his skill set more than I valued my own intuition on knowing that he wasn't going to give me the right attention. So I got into problems with him where I tried to pursue a project and he wasn't giving me any time to work on my project when that's what I was asking for. So that came to an end. So it's like every time you hit a roadblock in a company, like there's certain people are going to tell you, push right through it. You just got to keep going. Well, I think you have to sit down and be really self-aware and say, okay, do I want to push through this? Is it worth pushing through or not? Someone once told me that you have a good head on your shoulders, so use your head and not your shoulders.
Right.
There's a certain point in time, there's a certain point in time where if you encounter certain problems, sit down and really have a true conversation with yourself and say, am I willing to push past this problem? And if you're not, don't be like, I put so much time into this project, I have all this invested, just be like, that's it. This kind of ends here. And you start the next thing. So it's the same thing as that if you're working on one project and something else comes up and you jump to the next one, you weren't meant to do that one thing. On the contrary, there's certain people that need to sit down and finish a project and just completely out. It's an all matter of being self-aware. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
So I'll kind of pull from kind of what one of my professors said in college because, we're doing animation stuff. And so he goes, it's kind of funny. He goes, don't be afraid to kill your children. And what he meant by that was we're developing, say, these animation projects and we're 2 months in. And at that point we're like, I'm too invested. Like, I can't turn back now. I gotta finish this, even if it's not the right thing. And so kind of what he was saying by that was, don't be afraid to stop that project. Like, even if you put in X amount of time, don't be afraid to kill your children is what he said. And, and we were, say, making like a character or something like that in animation. And, we think it's good and then we realize that it's not fully developed. Do we want to put more time into that or do we want to switch to something else that could be better? So just because we put all that time in it doesn't mean we should, follow it through.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's key.
Same thing. Yeah, absolutely. Same thing with the music blog I wanted to pursue. I got to a point where I was outgrowing that lifestyle and I no longer wanted to be involved in it at that time. So like someone once told me that every entrepreneur has t-shirts in their basement. And I don't have them in my basement, but I got them in my closet. Like it's like I got a couple dozen t-shirts still from old companies that I tried to start. And that was a learning experience in itself. I've dumped tons of money into starting something that didn't work out. And you can't dwell on the money that you put into it. You have to move on. It's like, if you no longer find interest or happiness or fulfillment, joy in that project, you have to move on. So like me as someone who is, this is what I tell people, I'm a plumber by trade, an engineer by education, but an entrepreneur at heart, is like I went through a period of time where I didn't have an idea to pursue. And like that was very detrimental to, almost kind of detrimental to my health. Maybe my happiness, which was detrimental to my health. So it was one of those things where I had to be very self-aware. I took the time in the silence to learn about myself and to really focus on what I was interested in. So people are always like, where do you get an idea from, this, that? it really comes from figuring out what your interest is at that point in time. And that's where I think that Thoughtful Foods is going to be the first one that I finally found a product idea that I have great interest in, where it'll create value for other people. It'll promote good health, which is the value as well. And it's a project that I can pursue with my time, and it's a project I can pursue with my money. So it's finally, I found something that I'm willing to pursue with my money, with my time, and with creating value for other people in something that I am interested in. So
right.
I finally found something that to me is worth pursuing.
Yeah, and so here's speaking from someone who's seen you kind of go through all this, you can kind of tell, and it's funny because my mom's kind of going through the same thing, but you can tell that this is so much more well thought out. Excuse my pun, Thoughtful Foods. It's so well thought out. Like you've put the time into it, but also a lot of the effort and a lot of the thought that goes into it. It's not just, one of your music brand that you started up. You're like, yeah, this sounds great. I have some ideas. They're not super well formulated. Like, oh, this is good,
yeah.
But it's not fully thought out. And that's kind of, yeah.
Yeah,
that's kind
I
of
jumped on that
and
tried it. Sorry, yeah.
So my mom, she had a consulting company. Like she had her own consulting company where it was really just her, but she would outsource financial consulting to people. And so that was kind of her thing. And then she moved down here to South Carolina and she just got a job or whatever. And then, back up north, she tried to start like one or two other companies. And she came to me last week or the week before and was like, I want to start a new business. And I was like, all right, let's hear it. And so she told me all about like what she wants to do. And I could just tell that it's very different, right? Like it's not just another, I want to start a new business. It was, I want to start a new business. Here's everything I've thought about, and I've thought about it in depth. And like, when you can ask someone a question and say, hey, what are you going to do with X? And they can answer it right away because they've already thought it all the way through. Like that's huge. That's way different than a lot of people are like, I'm going to start a business. And all right, so what are you going to do when this happens? I don't know. I haven't really thought about it. Like it's when you've had that fully thought out idea that you can tell when it's going to be something that's going to be A, successful, and B, something that's going to continue to interest you.
Yeah, and something that is sustainable. Like it's, for me, like the music blog thing was like, how are you going to make money? It's like, well, I'm going to sell merchandise. It's like, well, who's going to buy the merchandise?
Yeah.
Well, people.
Well, and that was your key flaw from the beginning, right? Is you were asking, how am I going to make money? That was the key flaw.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Part of the reason I would definitely say that, and that's exactly like I didn't do it. I started it off out of interest, and it kind of led. It kind of led I left out of a lack of interest because it became maybe a pursuit of money. I was no longer interested in lifestyle, and I was trying to utilize it as like to try and build a brand, sell merchandise, and that's not sustainable. Like
Would you say you got discouraged? Would you say you got discouraged when like, say, stuff wasn't selling or things like that?
Yeah, to some degree for sure. Like there's always going to be the discouragement sense. I was probably discouraged in the sense that like it's not worth pursuing because I'm not selling anything. But the biggest reason was that like I wasn't interested in the party lifestyle anymore, so I didn't want to be involved in that community. That was essentially why I backed out of it. And it was kind of like it was kind of a defining moment for me was to say that I was partitioning my life, not partition, but like stepping out of an old lifestyle I was moving on, and getting away from that side of the business was helping me move on. So it was something that essentially had to happen basically.
Right. But also it's a huge growing experience, right? Like you wouldn't be where you are today without that.
No, and I might have spent like, $2,000-$3,000 to realize that you can't make a company successful trying trying to sell. Like, you can't. Like, and it's the same thing that, like, people say that, like, if you're not a salesperson, you can't succeed as an entrepreneur. I don't believe that at all. Like, it's the guy who I'm going to buy my tile from, a family friend, great guy, Coast Tile in Egg Harbor Township, and he's not a salesman, he's an educator. You go into his showroom, he'll teach all about everything. So it's like you have to be dumb. It's the title of Gary Vee's book. You know, it's like it's give, ask. You know, what is it? Jab, hook, whatever he called it. But it's like
right hook, yeah.
It's the same thing. I almost never believe in asking, so it's like
right.
I don't know why. It's like if I have just a negative connotation about asking people for help and things like that, and that's continue, you know, so we'll see how it succeeds in business. But like getting back to like BeMor Media and how I want the pages to be, I want BeMor Media to be a total dump of value. And in the header, it just includes thoughtful foods, you know, advanced water apparel, you know, say Benjamin Sebastian, the clothing company, like whatever it's going to be. Like that's what I want it to be. Like, so it's like, here's all the value. Here's the companies that we're pairing on.
Do you see it as just, say, like our projects? Or do you see it as one day being like, hey, we have these, you know, these 3 projects that we built from scratch ourselves, and someone comes to us and says, hey, I have this idea, or I have the start of a business, can you help me build it? Do you think we have just internal, or do we have external people?
Yeah, so people have asked me to go partner in them with products and certain things, and they've asked my advice, like, oh, like, you're really entrepreneurial minded, like, come run this thing for me. And I'm just like, I can't. I have no interest in the product that you just get, but I'll go in and I'll give them as much value as I can to help them be successful in that product, and in order for them to make it. And it's a matter of being self-aware to realize that, like, I'm an all or nothing person. So if I can't give you my all, then I can't be involved in your project. Like, if I can give you my all in a sense that you're asking my advice for business, I could totally, if you bring an idea to me, I could totally tell you how to do everything. From my perspective. If you're asking me to partner with you, if I'm not interested in that thing, I can't really be involved. If I think it's a great idea, but I'm not the guy to run it, I would be happy to invest in it. You know, so it's like, it depends. Like, I could totally see BeMor buying a company and then like running that company too, because we see it as a good investment and we're interested in it. However, I don't see it as something that it will be just like someone comes to us with a product idea and then we just buy them up, or like whatever, you know, whatever. Like, it really depends on interest to me.
Right. No, 100%. We're not gonna run something successfully without interest.
Right. I guess you're asking a question if I want it just to be solely our ideas, or if I see it as being other ideas later down the road.
Yeah, other ideas or other companies, or yeah.
Okay, yeah. So in part I answer your question. I'll elaborate in the sense that I could see that I want to prove that we can make it from our own perspective, from our own ideas first, and then get into.
And that's key, right? That's the leading by doing. Like, who's going to trust us if we were just to say, hey, we're BeMor Media. We haven't done anything, or we've done one project that's been our own. You know, like, let us help you. No one's going to trust us. No one's going to want to do that. But if we have 3, 4, 5 businesses that we started from scratch and we built to do this big thing, then people are going to be like, oh, like, yeah, you guys started from nothing with 5 different projects, and here you are now. Like, I'll trust you. Like, here's my company. What should we do?
Right, exactly. And that's also a conversation I wanted to have with you as well, is that Gary Vaynerchuk's business he's in the social media and like advertising on the consulting for social media advertising, and not only consulting, he runs the social media for many companies.
Right.
I want to be self-aware and say that I don't think that that's where we're going to take BeMor. So if you have a separate idea, bring it, tell me for sure right now, but I think that it's going to turn into something that will run our own companies and our own businesses. And I don't think we'll have the infrastructure or the time to be able to do more, the manpower, anything to do stuff like that.
I think that I agree. I don't think that's our thing, right? That's his whole thing is we help with social media and things like that. I think that we might have, say in the future when we're a larger company, we might have a little department that says, hey, we'll help out with your social media, but it's not our key, our key factors, our key goals.
Yeah, I think that if I have employees who have time, of course I'm going to take up a client. It's like,
right.
Keep them busy. Like, you got to keep them working. Like, I see it from a perspective that it's the way I would probably utilize the business in that aspect is to say, here, Ben and Morgan are going to open up a whole day to consult with companies. Pay $5,000 per company. Come and sit down with us. You have a whole 8 hours, lunch included, whatever. It's like, sit down with us, get to know us a little bit, see how we run our businesses, ask any questions you want. And then, like, on top of that, we could give you our services as an included inside of this to run a couple posts for you to show you how it's done. Like, utilize our employees to leverage the ability to help connect with other people. So it's, I almost see it as being able to sell the consulting portion of it later on down the road, as opposed to being able to sell the actual management of social media pages. I don't, like me personally, I wouldn't be able to do that. I think that you could run a subset. Really? Okay. I was going to say that I think that you could run a subset of a portion of BeMor that just managed company pages.
I could, and I'll tell you why I wouldn't do that, is because that's not, like we talked about, that's not an interest to me. And I've tried, right? So I have clients right now. They're like, hey, I want to do XXX and on social media. And I'm like, all right, here's some ideas that I have. Part of it's me not being fully knowledgeable in that field. Like, I could probably do more to research and become more knowledgeable, but it's not necessarily what I am interested in. So it's hard for me to kind of learn and gain that knowledge. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
So,
I see.
So I have a client right now, my client that I do the most work for, and I built their website. I have some like email marketing stuff. Like I can do some of the standard marketing stuff like that. But for social media, it also comes down to I don't have time, right? To be successful on social media, you need to push out content a lot and a lot of different content and things like that. And I don't have the time to do that for a client right now. But it's funny because my top client, right, I've done all this stuff for her, and I do a lot of ongoing website stuff, email newsletters, ebooks and things like that, like more designy things or developing things. But she has kind of been doing her own with, her own thing with Instagram, and I've just been letting her do it because A, I don't have the time, and B, I don't have the interest or the knowledge to be able to really successfully help with that. And I looked the other day and she has 10,000 followers. Like, I didn't do that, and I can't claim to do that because that wasn't me, but that just like showed me like, she has the time where she's posting every day or twice a day.
And the interest.
I can't. Right.
Yeah, it's like, I can totally see your perspective now. Yeah.
Yeah,
so
and I'm not opposed to say having a digital media company, right? Where, if I'm the head of a digital media division where we're making websites and we're doing the social media stuff to people, I just don't see me doing the social media myself.
Right. Yeah. So I would make this comment is that Gary Vee cares. His interest is inside like the social trends and changes in social media platforms and how they work on a technical basis and how they work on a psychological basis. So like that's where his interest is. So being able to do that for many other companies is enjoyment for them. Whereas you find the enjoyment or the interest in the specific product or idea and you utilize that as the interest to pursue the social media platform. And so that's why you would rather do it for a product that you're interested in, that one that you created yourself, as opposed to doing it as a career for just social media. Right. That makes total sense to me. Yeah.
And I think and this is something that I also want to bring up and kind of based upon this, right? Where so I don't have the desire or the interest in that side of things. I mean, I can do it for us when we're starting out, obviously, because I'd rather do it for us than us hire someone when we have no money. And also I'm interested in the businesses, so I'm more invested in making good social media content. But kind of stemming from this and kind of going through our whole conversation today, I think the biggest worry I have for us in general for this business is that we think too much alike. And I think that's going to be our biggest downfall if we're going to need to strategically hire people. And as you should hire people that know more than you do, right?
Yeah. Hire for
so
your
we're going to, right, exactly. So we're definitely going to need to do that, or in the meantime, we're going to need to be extremely self-aware of how closely we think, because, for example, if we talk about, what were we talking about? We were talking about having, I thought of something earlier that kind of sparked this for me. Having the same perspective on, different, starting different businesses and then like finishing them and not finishing them. So we kind of have the same thoughts where maybe not necessarily the same thoughts, but the same conclusions where, if you start something and then you stop and you move to something else, that might not have been the best one for you. So I think that we both think that, right? But I think that could be a downfall for us if we find that and we just say, oh, well, we stopped. And so we assume that it's not going to work for us and we're done. I think that not having a perspective that's the opposite of saying, well, let's consider what happens if we do push through, having that alternative perspective, or us being so self-aware that we can be like, let's take a step back and think about the opposite sides of things here. I think that could be, things like that could be a big downfall for us.
I agree and disagree. Like I'll actually say this is like, I didn't notice, I'm going to say that I haven't noticed how similar we are. Maybe because maybe I do more of this, maybe I do so much talking that I don't ask you enough questions that I haven't been able to figure out how closely we really do think. So it's like,
I'm thinking business-wise, like not necessarily personal life or anything like that, but on the business side of things, I feel like we have a lot of similar thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I haven't asked your opinion enough business-wise. So it's like, I'll say that that's probably a downfall that I have, because I haven't recognized that. Like, this is the first time I would be, you making me aware of that is the first time that I ever thought of it. On the other front, I'll say this is that I truly do believe that if we lose interest in something, it's not worth pursuing.
Oh, like, I agree with the interest thing, but I think hitting a roadblock is a different story.
Yeah, for sure. Sometimes you need to hire or whatever. And I think that part of that roadblock has to do with infrastructure. If you're hitting a roadblock and you can't get past it, you might not just have the right infrastructure to push through that problem. And I think that with time and building a company, that pushing through roadblocks will become, I'll put it in quotes, easier on certain levels of hitting that roadblock, because then you have someone who has the skill that you've hired for that skill to push past that roadblock. Like if we can't make a company successful because of social media posts, like that's not where we're talented in. You have to hire for that, for someone to post social media content and just keep pushing it through. Like there's a woman who works at Marie's Seafood in Seattle with me. She's excellent at social media. I've tried to tell her to do it as a profession because she does it for Marie so well. and
Yeah.
she's great. Like, she's very creative. She went to school to be an art teacher, and like she uses that creative sense of her personality to help push the company. But like, she's invested and involved with that company. That's where she finds her interest, and she knows it so well that she creates such good content for it. So.
Right. Well, and I think in that respect, in the social media respect, and with a lot of things, that is key. Not necessarily, a lot of people will be like, hey, I am going to hire X marketing company to, do all their social media. Yeah, that's great. You're probably getting at a lot of social media, maybe a little more professional because this is what they do all the time. But they're not going to know you like someone inside knows you. So that's why I think for something like that, hiring someone for social media is way better than outsourcing it.
Yeah, I think every company should have it. Really do.
Yep, I agree.
But this conversation started with the direction we saw our social pages going.
Yeah.
And I'll bring my opinion back online. Is that I agree we should both have individual pages. Because I think that we're going to be running the company from two different perspectives, so we should both share that different perspective. And
I agree.
And the advice on that as well. Where I see BeMor being is, I want BeMor to present a reputation for being more. It's the title of the company. BeMor. Be more, in life, be more for your business, be more for your family, be more for society. So I think that on an individual basis, the content that we produce individually should be utilized on the BeMor page as how to add value. Like, that's BeMor to me is just adding value. So I want to show on the BeMor social pages how to add value and where we are adding value as a company. So it's whether we're adding value through one of our companies, like we just developed this product, which is X whatever, can be the sell. However, really do want it just to be a page dedicated to adding value, and that's it. And then, like I said, leave like the hooks for just the title. Like, we run this company, this company, this company. And like, that's it. If one of our subset companies is adding value in a certain way, we can totally post that. Like, that's not out of the question. But I don't think that people are going to be interested in people aren't going to be interested in the things that we're doing for our clients. Like, I don't see that being an interest. Like, where's the value in that? Like, if we record a conversation that we have with a client and that adds value, post it. Like, that's where like the content would be created from a client. Like, we met with so and so and this is what came of it, and throw the value back into the community. Because like, almost sorry to say this, looking at VaynerMedia's page, I don't really see the purpose.
No, I agree. I was looking at that, and we kind of talked about that, but it's kind of like it kind of just looks like a page where they just like almost like post memes and like here's a little quote and that's it. Like, it wasn't really, at least for the Instagram, because we looked at the Instagram. That was kind of what it wasn't. It wasn't a lot of content. I would argue that page shouldn't even exist because it's not providing any value. Right. So that's the point, minimal. Is that all the value for VaynerMedia comes from Gary Vee. Yes. Like, that's they don't need a social media account. They really don't. Right. They really like. So it's like, I don't want to create that infrastructure where there's a waste of time and just a consumption of people's time. Like, it's like, BeMor is going to be where the value's added. Individually, like, we're going to present our different roles in the company on an individual basis. And then BeMor is where we're just producing that. Like, I think that we'll both produce enough content that to it eventually that we can host individual pages and we can host pages where, the value is just being added from BeMor perspective. So, and then thoughtful foods, posting content daily, just be like, try a brownie, try a cookie, like whatever. That's the sell page. But it's like you're adding the value on the BeMor. Well, yeah, in that page, it's more of check out this recipe that you could use our brownies with. Like, rather than buy our brownies, But I get your point for sure. Yeah.
like we just posted a new recipe on the blog, or someone just wrote this for thoughtfulfoods.com, so it's like, yeah, we're definitely going to be trying to push value first on every page.
Right.
And then, so it's like BeMor will be the value to be more. Like that's what I want that to be. I want it hold true to the title, so.
Yeah. So I have actually a couple of questions, but my first one, do you see, let's say, us at BeMor Media having an in-house creative team?
I think I think you have to. And
so,
okay, define what you mean by creative team.
Yeah. So I guess here's a better way to put it. Us moving my company of Creative Cash under BeMor Media.
Do I see that happening?
Yes.
Well, I think that lies in what I would ask the question of where do you see Creative Cash evolving as an individual business? Where do you see that evolving to?
So in this respect, I see it as being a business, like in this case, it would be, say, under BeMor Media. So BeMor Media is helping Creative Cash grow, right? But Creative Cash can also do any adjacent kind of work, right? So if we have a new company that comes up, Creative Cash is designing the website and the branding or anything like that. You know what I mean? Do you think that there is a benefit of having it underneath BeMor Media or having it still be completely separate?
That's okay. So I would almost go into the legality of it then. Do I see it being underneath? Yeah, absolutely. Why? Because of the fact that we're going to need it so much. So it's either you put it underneath of it or you bill yourself.
Right. So that's kind of, I've been thinking about it a lot actually since we've been talking about all this, is that I don't think it makes sense to keep it separate, where at least in the long run, where I'm not going to be like, kind of in the end, we're going to be the two executives or whatever at BeMor Media with all these sub companies. It doesn't make sense to us be two executives at this and then we also have this creative business that does stuff for the company, that's separate.
Right. So I would say this is when it comes time is there a point in time where there's no purpose of having Creative Cash?
Yeah, probably.
Because
as it stands, right? There's no purpose of having it as it is right now. There's always a purpose of having it as a company that builds websites, does design work and things like that for the sub companies or clients or things like that. Okay,
I would change one word in what you just said and said a company to infrastructure. Right. So where Creative Cash will always be an infrastructure that does X, will it always be a company that does X? I guess that's the true question. Like, Creative Cash will always be an infrastructure that creates content and designs websites for BeMor. However, do you feel that it will always be a company that like a company that's actually titled to, so I'm trying to see eventually in the future, is there a point to having it if we're not going to pursue pushing such a social media or web design, like web development business of BeMor? Is there eventually going is there going to come a point in time where there's no point of having that title as a subset underneath BeMor, because that's exactly what BeMor will be.
Right. And I could see that where it gets absorbed. So rather than being BeMor Media and then Creative Cash, it could be like BeMor Creative or something like that. Like it's internal. Right.
Yeah. Actually, I love that.
Doesn't it sound good? I thought of that the other day and I was like, BeMor Creative. I like it.
Yeah, that's all. So it becomes really a company versus infrastructure kind of a question. And I think that we will always have a creative team underneath of BeMor. but will
Yep.
there be a necessity? Will there be a necessity to run that as a subset, or is it just the infrastructure underneath of? Because to me, BeMor runs everything, right? So it's inside. So say we'll use BeMor in thoughtful foods because this is the first pursuit.
Right.
BeMor we'll break it down. I'll be making management, operational decisions. You'll be making creative and development decisions, and then so later on down the road. So say there's those two sides of thoughtful and BeMor. We both handle those
Yep.
two currently standing quotes. If we were to, so adding someone to thoughtful foods would be something like adding someone who can create new recipes or blog about food. Adding somebody to BeMor Media would be someone who could design the web page for thoughtful foods or continue to make updates for thoughtful foods.
Right.
So it's like, I don't want to try and make it too complex to a point where it wastes more time than what it really is. But like there's definitely a distinguishing line between the two, in my opinion, where this person will handle this task and decision making because they're underneath the thoughtful foods, and this person will handle this development because they're for thoughtful foods because they're under BeMor. So it's.
Yep. I agree. And obviously this isn't, I mean, we're not talking about, hey, tomorrow I'm going to go switch this under, you know what I mean? Like,
right, of course
it's further down the line, but I think it definitely, obviously we don't want to think about just the next year. We want to think about 10, 15, 20 years in the future. So it's just something I wanted to bring up.
I think that we always are. Yeah, I could see there being like a BeMor creative, like, Instagram page just so that they can constantly like update people on what they're doing and like helping like This is something I would enjoy if we had a BeMor creative Instagram pages that one of our developers who's active in the community being like, hey, I made a 2-minute post on how to code your web page so that when you scroll over the hamburger menu, it appears without clicking on it, like something like that.
Right.
So it's like helping the community on that aspect. So it's like giving back to the community from the perspective of our creative team.
Right.
Like that's how I could, but I wouldn't see Creative Cash as becoming something that's like a subset company because actually plain and simple is the company making as a team, is it making revenue is it bringing in revenue or just generating revenue internally?
Right.
Do you understand?
I get it. That definitely makes sense.
Yeah. So like, I think that's what would divide becoming a company, whether it becomes a company or remains an infrastructure. I think that's where the decision lies. And I'm not going to put a limitation on it right now.
Right. No, and it's not a limited decision. That's definitely, it's just food for thought kind of thing. Or thoughtful food,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. So something else I wanted to bring up, and I think I texted you this like a couple weeks ago, was that I had, and this is kind of going a little off topic because it's more of on my business side of things, but I just wanted to run an idea by you.
Absolutely.
So I was trying to think of different ways to get clients, right, for Creative Cash. So in Charleston, and I know we've talked about this before, there's a lot of startups and tech companies and things like that. So my thought process is when I'm looking at all these startups, right, they're startups, so they don't necessarily have the money to get this crazy website, like this well-designed, where it should be, where it could be helping their business. So my thought process is I would like to work with them. The problem lies in, goes back to the same thing. They don't have money. They don't have a good website because they don't have money. So they're not going to hire me for things like that. So I was trying to think of different ways that I could say do hey, I'll build a website for you. It doesn't cost you any money now, but I get X percentage equity in your company.
And you want my opinion on that?
Yep, sure do.
I would find a company you're interested in.
Yeah, I wouldn't work for, like, hey, I'm going to make a website for everyone. I would vet it, I guess. So I would say, hey, this company, I like what they're doing. I'm interested in them. See them being successful. It's not just, Joe Schmo that made a startup out of his, house and, he's not really fully invested. It would be more of I'm interested in the company. I like the owner. I like what their thought process is. I like where they're going. I like their vision, things like that. And then I would make that proposal.
Yeah, I would most certainly do that. Because why wouldn't you? But I would base it off the perspective of, like, if you have time. Like, if you have the time to say that, like, this is what I want to do in pursuit of percentages of companies, then I would utilize my talents and my time to help produce potential, income for me in the future.
And that's kind of how I was looking at it. Was like, yeah, it's not going to provide me any immediate value, but it's providing them value, which in turn can provide me value in the future.
Yeah, I would say on the basis is that two things. A, do you have the time? And B, do you see it being an ROI? So the ROI, actually, it all comes down to time. That's it, actually.
Yeah.
Because
the ROI comes from the time. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Because I'll put it this way. If you have the time to give to them right now, and be actively involved in that.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have to look at it from a broad perspective, say, what am I currently doing right now? And what should I be doing? So it's like, I can either go chase after clients for equity, or I could start building my own business. So there's really where the question lies. So do you want to spend the time to build equity in your own company, or do you want to spend the time earning equity in someone else's company?
Right. And I guess, I do need to think about, I guess, the percentage, right? Because I was kind of thinking, hey, maybe I do 1 or 2 projects a year like that, where it's not, I'm doing all, because I think that's silly to put all your eggs in that basket, where you could come up with $0, or you could come up with $3 million or whatever, like that's just not good business. But I was kind of seeing it as me doing maybe 1 or 2 projects a year like that, where I find like a really good, something that I'm really interested in, something I could see a good ROI in the future, and something that I can back and I can believe in.
Right.
So
you're asking a question.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, you're asking a question off of how much percent should you ask for?
Yeah, well, I mean, that obviously comes with it, and I don't know if necessarily you'd be able to answer that. I'm definitely, obviously, if I do something like this, I'm going to have to talk with a lawyer, because I'm going to have to get contracts and stuff like that.
Okay, so I think that, A, you're taking this conversation too far in your own head, and you have to first think about, where do I want to place the time first? This is one of those things, it's where you're chasing interests. So where do you want to put your time? That's it. Number one, figure that out. Number two, if you really want to talk about percentages, I would be like, if you build a relationship with the company, you're like, I have these talents, blah, 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 I could do this for you. And they're like, we don't really have any money. And you could be like, I'll work for equity. And they're like, really? You would? You're like, yeah. And I would be like, how much can you offer? I wouldn't give them a percentage. And then you determine your worth. Like, if they're like, I could give you, like 0.5%. Like, nah, no thanks. Right. And you'd be like, I gotta be, like, looking at the high risk of your project, I gotta be at like 4%, 5%, maybe even 15%. Like, if it depends on how dominant the web is for, like, you can't put a percentage on every company. Like maybe this company only needs a website for informational purposes, whereas another company needs a website for
e-commerce or something like that.
Handle all the e-commerce and the marketing for them. So it becomes one of those things where it's a project rated on what it is, how much reliance it's going to be, how reliant it will be on your ability to develop something for them.
So here's where
really
I was going to kind of price it out in the back end, right? So I wasn't going to say, hey, give me, I'm not going to go up to everyone and say, hey, give me like 1% of your company or whatever. In the back end, not necessarily public, client facing, I was going to have, say, features, right? So adding e-commerce is worth $10,000 or whatever, like that's how much it's going to be worth for me. And then adding this and this and this, and then basically having a total of say, hey, this project, should be worth $22,000. And then I can go back and say, all right, here's what this company's assessed at. They're assessed at $7 million. What's, the percentage, $22,000, the percentage of that. And also adding like perceived value, right? So not just actual value where there's like $10,000 is e-commerce, $2,000 is $2,000 that, but adding how much value do I think this website is going to bring to the company? So I can say it's worth, X amount on top of the cost of all the services. And then I can go back and say, all right, your company's evaluated at $1 million. Maybe not tell them this exactly, but say in my head, I'm saying it's going to cost $22,000. If I pull that, what's that percentage of $1 million? And then that's what I go back and say, all right, well, I need 5-10% of your company, whatever it calculates that to be.
Okay. So I'm entertaining all this because I think it could help somebody in the future. If this was just a conversation between you and I would have said that it ends at the whole conversation of time. But I would also, you're bringing up valuations of companies as if you can evaluate the company. B, it's already been evaluated for, for a specific, giving it a specific value on the whole business itself.
Right.
And then I would say, C, if it has a valuation of X amount of millions of dollars or whatever it may be, why they would have to already have some form of a web presence already.
True.
So in reality, you would really be talking, like if someone were to do this in the future, you would really be talking to someone who's just getting started.
Right.
Like I think that if you hung out in a co-working space and you had downtime, like it's totally worth it to help build people around you because you're working one-on-one, you know them, so you're doing work for the people inside the co-working space. Or if you had a full-time job and you worked in that 9 to 5, but you wanted to build yourself, your income potentially in the future, and you're not a guy who likes to sit around, you want to do something, go get active in those communities, get to know people, build relationships with those people, and then start helping them. So if I could do it as this, if I were to pursue plumbing as a full-time career, I would do it on the basis of plumbing for other. So if someone built a new house, I would do the plumbing for that house. If someone was looking to buy a property and they had the money but not the talent, and I would say, okay, give me 20% of say whether it be the sale, give me 20% of the sale when you flip the house, and I'll do the plumbing for you. Or like if you want to hold this as a long term, like I would partner with someone who I knew well enough to give 20% and I'll collect 20% of the rent or of the sale when we flip it. Because you have the money, but I have the talent. I would I would only do that if I knew that it was something that on a time basis, like that's where my skill set is and that's where all my time is devoted. Do I think it's okay, I'll say it on the same basis of this, is that I've been if it comes down to a question of time, people have offered me jobs. People have offered me ideas and projects, and I've turned them all down because I know that I want to spend my time building my business for the ROI on my time through my own projects, my own products and everything. So it truly lies in where you want to spend your time. Like that's what it comes down to. I think that someone could definitely utilize that model to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
And it really comes down to what you want to do.
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, that definitely makes sense. It's definitely something to think about. I just thought of it as, and you might be right. Like it might not be the best idea for me, but I love the idea in general. You know what I mean? And I guess that's probably where I wanted to go with it, where we further flesh that out to see how it could work.
Right. It basically, that's like, like going and buying penny stocks to me.
Right.
Like it's like a high risk, high reward.
Yeah.
If you have
think
time.
It's such an underutilized market, right? Like who's going to go and build for a startup unless they go on AngelList, which I don't know if you've been on, but AngelList is it's like a job website where startups post jobs, but they either hire you for a salary because they're already funded, or they hire you for equity. So it's similar to that. Like that's the only other thing that I could see really providing that kind of value to startups where, but they're still hiring people, or they're hiring people for equity. But this is kind of like an outside consultant where it's non-committal, where they don't have to say, oh, you're here every year. Like we have to find a salary for you, or we have to make sure you have equity. Yeah. It's like, hey, I'm outside.
Yeah, I always think that like when you have an idea, like I know that someone's already doing this, but it's like something that you thought of doing yourself. But it's like somebody's out there doing this right now, and there's some people who've definitely become successful of it. And then there's other people who probably resentful because they regret that they wasted their time trying to do this as well. So it really does come down to the project, and if you have like I would never be able to do that without actively being involved in the community. So like if you're working in a co-working space with startups and you get to know all these people and you work side by side with them during the day, like if you run your own business, you're just an individual and you have clients and you host those clients inside that co-working space, use it as an office space for yourself to show up for work every day. And then you have extra time outside of that, like building, web developing or doing social media stuff for people is definitely something that you could pursue as like a side gig to pursue equity to try and build a long-term game plan for, I think that's long-term, that's an awesome plan for someone who has the extra time and has that community basis where they can build relationships and realize that this is a good project to invest in. Because it kind of comes down to investing in the right project and how will you know. One of those things.
Right. Like I wanna like give that idea to someone here, like because you're right. I don't think I have the time to put into that. If I wasn't doing my full-time job in grad school and I was just doing Creative Cash and I was trying to find a way to get more clients and things like that, that would be something I would do. But that's not where I'm at right now. But I think I want to give this idea to someone in Charleston because I think this is a huge space that could be utilized because there's so many startups here. And there's, it's huge.
Right. Maybe the best way of giving it to someone is posting this online.
Right. Oh, I agree. I could definitely.
Like someone might listen to this like 15, 20 years from now and still be able to utilize. Like I'm sure that'll happen. Like it's.
Yep. I agree.
It's definitely like, is it a sustainable model? Like it totally is if you utilize it as, it's a sustainable model if either like you're a young guy or a young girl and like you learn how to build websites or whatever and like say you're going through college, so like you're going through all your classes but you still have extra time, but like, or you got done college and you moved home with your parents, you have minimal expenses and you just want to try and build like a long-term game plan, or if you work full-time, you have extra time at night, you get involved in those communities, or you work in the co-working space. Like, anyone could pursue this model. It could totally work out for some people. Someone could get very fortunate in doing it. Like,
definitely.
it's one of those things that could definitely happen. Like I could totally see it playing out. But it comes down to, do you have the time to be active in a community to help try and, because it's going to be one of those, like, that person has to trust you in order to give you a percentage of their baby, like that, because that's how it is. It's like that guy used the kill your children, whatever the hell you said. It was funny. It's kind of, is it sick on one way? I'll make it even worse. Is say that, like, is someone willing to give you one of their baby's ligaments or whatever? Like, it's like, that's kind of like what it is. It's like they're giving a portion of their child away. That's just
right.
That, like, it's the same way, like, people say, like, don't fall in love with your first child, like, as a company.
Right.
Because sometimes there's a point where you need to sell, and if you're fully in love with that and you can't let go, then you might pass up an opportunity that was worth taking.
For sure. Always good things to think about.
Yeah.
Love where our conversations go.
Yeah, we've definitely been all over the place, but
yeah,
good.
That's about par for the course for how our minds work.
Yep, true.
Our minds are all over the place.
Yeah, I mean,
right,
that's pretty much all I got. What else you got?
What do you think about next step? What do you think we should kind of do? What should be like our next, I guess, goal or task to accomplish?
Honestly, like, when you first asked me that question, I'm just like, where could how can I even start anywhere? So I'll utilize this time as, like, to help document the process,
yep.
and say this is, like, I'm currently sitting in a house that has, like, half the studs are visible and half the walls have sheetrock on it, So, like, I'm working on this house to get myself and Courtney into this place, on the same time trying to build a business, at the same time,
right.
Working at nights at a restaurant. So I wake up, spend my mornings at the house working, spend my evenings at the restaurant working, and, I'll work there 6-7 days a week. So it becomes one of those things. It's like, when do you have time to work on the business? And as far as right now, what my next steps are is going to be trying to get actively involved in documenting this process of the struggle that I'm going through to try and pursue all of them. It's like, pretty soon, hopefully, we're trying to add kids into that equation too. So it's like, it gets, like, life progresses, it gets worse and worse and worse and harder. And I want to actively show the struggle, like, enjoying the struggle and the process and the pursuit of what is fulfilling to me.
Right.
So what's the next step for this company? Dude, it's hard to say, man. Like, it's really difficult. And it pains me to the fact that it's like, it pains me to the point that it's like, I got married. I'm putting my happiness I'm putting someone else's happiness before mine. Plain and simple.
Right.
Like, I actively chose that. I made that decision. I got married, things changed. Like, right then and there, like, it changed. It's no longer about me. It's about my wife. It's about the future of my family. And at the same extent, the business will be the future of my family as well. However, I have to put them inside a place where they have a home first. So the business is unfortunately taking a back burner, but it's how can I be in the background working to build that as well, is I think kind of comes from just documenting the process of going through that.
Yep. Yeah, I love that. And I mean, and for, also for documentation purposes, we'll say where I'm at, because we're kind of on a same trajectory, right? Like we both just got married within the past 6 months. We both just bought a house within the past 6 months. I'm working full time, managing a college's website. I'm doing, an MBA. So I'm working with grad school doing that, and then I'm also doing freelance clients. And so, plus everything else that comes with, you know, buying a new house and just being married and, you know, things like that. So like I feel like we're definitely both in the same spot. And, you know, some would say looking in, this probably isn't the best time to start a business. But I don't think there's any good time to start a business. You know what I mean? Even if neither of us were doing anything, it's still probably not the best time to start it. You know what I mean? Like it's just,
like,
there's never going to be that perfect world where we're both like completely free, ready to go. Let's start it.
It's like there can definitely be a defining point in your life where you're like, all right, I'm mature enough to have kids right now or whatever. But to me, like two people get married, when's the best time to have kids? There is none. And only because of the fact that you'll never be ready. So it's just, it's like creating a business, you'll never be ready. You just got to make the first step. Having a kid, there's a point where some people would argue that some people shouldn't have had a kid, but it's one of those things that you'll never be ready for. You just make the step if that's what you want to do.
I think that the only time you're ready to have a kid is when it's too late. Like you might be like 70 and be like, I can have a kid, you know? Like, but you physically can't. You know what I mean? Like I feel like that's the only time that you might say, yeah, I'm ready for a kid is when you can't.
Yeah, I'll present another one of things that I'll be.
It's definitely. I agree though. Like I love kids. I would love to have kids. There's no way I'm ready to have a kid right now. But I don't think that 5 years from now, which in 5 years we probably will have at least a kid, like at least one, if not two. Like I don't think that in 5 years from now I'll be ready either.
Yeah,
it's just one of those things that happens, and you go with it.
Yeah, if I wanted to say this first, and then I'll go back to Wells. I'll present a saying that you'll hear a lot from me is that if you take a second to guess, you're already a second late. Like it's one of those things where you just have to act. Like if someone were to take a macro view of my life right now, they'd be like, you're spending, I don't know, I guess, say like 6 hours at your house every single day working. You're spending 8 hours at a restaurant working every night. And then
what are your days looking at? Just so we can have this, like when you wake up and then you do 6 hours and then like all that. Go through like an average day. All
right. I'll finish this thought and then I'll go back. It's like, looking at my life from a broad perspective is that I you know, working on my house, working at the restaurant, someone wouldn't say that I have like a stable life where a kid could be an active part of that lifestyle. And you know,
100%.
so it's like, for sure, like there's just like looking at my life broadly, like there's just no, like, it's almost laughable, I guess you could say. But like it's something that I want, you know, that myself, Courtney, want to.
Well, and here's what I would say to that is there's people that have it worse, right? There's people that are making less than minimum wage. They have 6 kids already and they have another kid. You know, like they're working,
I know people like that.
3 jobs or whatever. And I think that's like huge. And that's what I've been trying to do a lot lately is look at, well, it could be worse. It could be this. And so like my life is great. Like there's no, like, my life is awesome. If I ever think differently, I gotta look at, step back and take into perspective, wow, it could be 10 times worse.
Yeah, I'm completely blessed. Have been my entire life. Everything I went through for a reason, and I wouldn't change anything. Like it's like
100%. I agree.
In the situation that I'm in, I would want it no other way, you know.
Right.
And to add kids on top of that all, I would be blessed to add a kid into all this struggle, you know.
Right.
Like it's just like it is a like count your blessings kind of an approach. Like it has to.
No, for sure.
You said a day in the life of.
Yeah.
Recently, I've been getting
tell me
up.
where your day is.
Recently, I've been getting up late, like at 9 o'clock. But I do.
9 o'clock is not late for everyone, but yeah.
Yeah, it's just, I do better when I get, say, anywhere from 6.5 to 7.5 hours of sleep. Like if I touch 8, anything past that, I'm tired. If I'm like anything less than 6, I'm tired. So it's usually 6 to 7:30.
There's that sweet spot.
Like So you can extend it like the 6 to 8 hours. Like 8 hours is like a good recovery day for me. 6 is like I'm high functioning. 6.5
Right.
is like I got 6.5 hours last night. I'm feeling great. I did have a coffee this morning though, so like I kind of cheated.
Amped up.
Yeah, so like, you know, I'm not really sure. I was fine, but I was in Wawa, so I was like, nah, okay.
Yeah.
That's not true. I stopped just to get a coffee. I gotta take that back. I wound up getting a bunch of other stuff. Anyways, so today I got up at 6:30. Courtney got up to go to school. I left the house at 7:15, 7:10. I was out the door and came to the house. I went to Wawa, came to the house. So I've been here since like 8 o'clock. And
Yep.
I mean, we've had this conversation, but previous to our conversation, I was just tearing out sheetrock. So I usually for the past, I'm going to try and start getting up earlier than I am. So try and be out of her house, say by 8 o'clock, work at the house from, you know, whenever I get there, 8:30 until during the week, I go in late around like 3 o'clock and I'll work till whenever we close. So later on in the summer, that'll be 10 o'clock. Right now it's
Right.
like 8:30. So, and then after that, I'll drive home. I'll usually drive to the house, check on the dumpster if I have to, if it rained or anything, make sure it's tarped.
Yep.
Or if it's going to rain. And then I'll go back from the house I'm working on, I'll go to Courtney's parents' house and stay there. So
Right.
I guess I'm up at 8 o'clock and I'm back
Yep.
home around 11.
Right.
That's 12, 13, 14, 15 hours. 15 hours a day I'm out of the house.
All right. So if you have, I'm just trying to see if we can find, because I know it's killing you to not be able to work on the company and things like that.
Yeah, it
like,
does because it on a perspective of priorities. Right now, it's actually not killing me as much as it did in the past because almost as if, because put it this way, house is number one priority right now. Second priority
right.
is work to fund the house. Third priority is then the business. Like that's like on a basis of like priority of my time, that's where it is. And kind of my relationship with Courtney takes the back burner because I feel that building the house is going to draw us closer together by being able to be together when in reality it's actually, that's not how it should be. So I had this conversation with her the other night is that I've prioritized the house more than I prioritized her, you know, our relationship together. And it definitely took a hit, you know, only being a month out of marriage because of that. Like I see our relationship a priority. I see the house as the priority to facilitate that relationship, where she sees the relationship as a priority and spending time together as that priority. So we both have to find the way to compromise on that. And I spend time at the house, but also take like a night or an evening to spend time with her. Like we went out to dinner together. It was great. You know, absolutely. But like you have to separate that time and realize I got to take time to make things right, you know, to make sure everything's okay. Like I haven't been asking enough questions about her lately. It's all been talk about the house. Like you got to sit down and be like, what's she doing? Where's her struggle? Like I asked her, I'm like, what's your top 3 struggles? Right? And it's like, probably because like I never thought to ask her that when we were just thinking about the house all the time. So it's like, you know, I haven't been active enough in knowing what's going on in her head. You know, so you got to take the time to do that.
Oh, for sure. Some would argue that's priority number 1.
Yeah,
you know,
and it definitely should be. And because like now after our conversation with her, it's like that's something that I'm like making sure that we're good. You know, it's got to be priority right now. But I meant on an aspect of like my time work during the day, like where your priorities kind of lie in the. Well, I almost don't want to say your priorities lie in where the time you spend with it because it's one of those things that's like quality versus quantity. So.
Right. Gotcha. Yeah, I'm just you let me know though if there's anything I can do to help with if you wanna with anything, but if you want to, you find a way to push forward with any business stuff when priorities adjust,
Yeah, I do, but this is the problem. All the money in my opinion, to make the next step for the to make the next step I'm stopping myself from saying that because it's not true. But in my mind, to make the next step, it requires money, when in reality, it kind of doesn't. I think that we can be actively engaged in progressing the business by finding ways to push forward value in the community around the topic or idea of the business we're pursuing. So like this is the first step right here. Like this is like I've taken 2 hours out of my day of working on things so that we had a good quality of sound, but it wasn't like banging and hammering and going around and tearing out sheetrock in the background, but it's to build, this is, so yeah, I've taken the time today. You just helped facilitate me making progress on our project by setting up this phone conversation to be recorded. Plain and simple. Like that was it. Like this is the first step to help build our brand and awareness around our brand and helping add value to people. Because that's what we're documenting the process, and we're trying to add value first before we're throwing a jab way before we're throwing a hook. Like it's when you don't. So I'm going to say this now because I'm glad that we started documenting this. Like I'm going to try and add value when I don't have the money to sell product.
Yeah. I mean,
and because that's how I think that it should be. People complain, and I was even complaining, guilty of it, that I don't have the ability to pursue my project because of money. But in reality, I do, and we're doing it right now. So,
right. So here's the thing: let's say if I stood up a website for us for Thoughtful Foods, and this week or whatever, and rather than starting it by saying, hey, here's this brownie mix or whatever that we're going to sell. If I stood it up as a blog, would you have recipes and stuff that you would post?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely could, for sure. Like, and I
was something that we could do.
Yeah, we've talked about this before because people ask me for like cooking recipes for like stuff that I make all the time. And yeah, I bought BennyCrocker.com in order to post my recipes for family members. Like that was it.
Right. So what do you think about doing that? Because to be honest, that's probably where we should start anyway. If we build a following through, hey, here's some recipes and things like that, then later we could say, oh, we have this new product, and you're already invested in it. Like we're kind of I feel like we're kind of going about it the wrong way, where we know that we're not supposed to say, hey, here's our product, buy it, and also we have some recipes.
Yeah. See, it's almost better to bootstrap it because you're able to do this first. Like it's all about community. Building the community first before you sell a product I think it's genuinely what it's all about. And like I keep coming back, like jab, 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 hook, like that's it. Like it's like it has to be. And we've had this conversation before that we should do this, and we never have. So I'm glad that we finally come to a point where monetarily we can't afford it. So like this is the problem. Like I've tried to push businesses in the past push them forward with money instead of pushing them forward with the genuine sense of adding value.
Right. So now we actually can't. We can't go forward with money. So let's do the value.
Right. And this is where everybody should start. And we're all blinded by money to the respect that we feel that that's the only way we could succeed. And I'm glad that it's come to this point and that you brought this question up. Yeah, absolutely. That would be the best thing that we could do by far.
All right.
Like I can spend an evening.
Let me do that then.
Right. I don't have a kitchen that I call home, and to me, like, not having that comfortable space in the kitchen is definitely a difficult thing to me. So I could definitely post old recipes that I got. Absolutely.
Let's do that then, because
I think that will provide immense value. And like, it's funny, right? Because we've been talking about this the whole time. Let's get this product out there. Let's get this product out there. And we've been talking about, let's do this blog too, but it hasn't been let's do the blog and provide value. Right.
Yeah, it hasn't been the priority. We really haven't made value the priority.
It's funny because we know it. We know it, right? We're like, the whole time we were talking about, let's do the blog and provide value, but it wasn't the number one thing. Like, we know what's right, but we still didn't do it.
Right. We took the product as being number one. Yeah, this has been quite the epiphany that we've brought ourselves to.
Right. And I feel like it hasn't been like an epiphany. It's been more of a slow realization. You know what I mean? Like, it hasn't been we just realized it. It's definitely been it's been developing. And I think that the circumstances have helped that develop. Where, we have this great idea to sell this product, but we don't have the money. And that constant, we don't have the money, but also we want to progress. We want to move forward. That's kind of pushed it to this where we are now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, repetition for effect. We continually set it to a point where we actually got to that point in time where we're like, there's no other way. I'm glad it's come to this.
Yeah, I am too, because this helps. It pushes where we've been kind of in limbo. We've been kind of stuck.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you could probably even utilize this as a platform in like a Fortune 500 company to see how an idea progresses without throwing money at it. Just throwing it out there, adding value, seeing where it progresses. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That could be an incredible framework to build our business on in general, where we take our decision and so when we have a whole giant, enterprise, and we say, hey, I want to start up this new business, rather than saying, all right, well, BeMor Media is going to, fund $7 million to start this new business. What if we say, all right, how are we going to start this business from nothing? With no funding, no backing. And then, we could provide backing in the future, or we could provide backing at the beginning, but if we say that, but first we have to think about how we could do it without the backing, that's where.
Yeah.
That's where I could go.
But you definitely,
I'm gonna send you, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Sorry.
I'm going to send you a link to a book that I've been reading. And I feel like I might have mentioned it to you, maybe not. What's it called? I think it's called Primal Branding.
Oh, cool.
It's really interesting, and I think it'd be super helpful for this new direction where we're kind of taking things. Essentially, let me see, Primal Branding. Alright, so it's called Primal Branding, and the kind of subtitle for it is Create Zealots for Your Brand, Your Company, and Your Future. So it's all about, like, how you can build a community around your brand.
Yeah. And
so I'll send you a link to that.
That's totally it. It's like that. People want to start a business to build a community, or start a business to start a lifestyle. Like a lifestyle brand or whatever. When in reality, you got to start the community to build the lifestyle to sell the product itself.
Right.
Or let me rephrase that, because we were using 3 different terms. The first 2 are correct. You have to start a community to build a lifestyle that enables the business to succeed, or the brand. That's what I meant to say. Brand.
Right. And that's kind of,
I think that's what it comes down to.
That's the basics of sales in general. If you think about it, it matches really well with the basics of sales, where if you're a good salesperson, so a good salesperson does not start by selling the product, right? They start by selling themselves. So they make you committed to them. So I'm going to sell myself to you. Here's why you should trust me. Things like that. Here's why we'd be a good team. And then they're going to sell the business. So now that you are sold on me, let me tell you about the business and where our priorities are and things like that. And then once you're committed to me as a salesperson, the business as a whole,
then now let me say, all right, now you have this trust built. Let me sell you the product. So you sell yourself, you sell the business, and then you sell your product. And that's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, it's totally it's all about relationships. Like that's
right.
I really do think that life comes down to relationships, and that's why I'm trying to get better at small talk, because I think that it's fascinating. Like, to bring it back.
Oh, it is.
Like that. And it totally is. Like, it just and it really comes down to like realizing what life's all about is loving one another. Like, it's really actually appreciating and like caring for the other person. Like, that's it.
Right. Awesome. I love where this went. Because I will definitely start working on like, it doesn't even have to be a fully crazy developed blog, just something that we can start putting stuff out there on.
Yeah, absolutely. This is where it creates accountability.
Yep.
So by putting this out there, it creates accountability for you held up your end of the bargain. Now it's time that I hold up my end of the bargain. And by creating, you hold up your end, I hold up my end, then we have a community to be accountable for, even if it's just one person.
Right.
Somebody's waiting.
Right. Yep. I love it. Because I felt like we were stalled out. So I love that we're pushing forward. It might not have been what we wanted to push forward through originally, but I think this is better.
Way better. Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Like, it's no doubt in my mind, like, that this is the best conclusion we could have come to over this conversation.
Awesome.
We were definitely stalling out because we felt we didn't have the resources to do so, you know?
Right.
Like,
right.
I just said that I spend 15 hours out of Courtney's parents' house, outside of Courtney's parents' house. That leaves me with 9 hours in the day. And I said I thrive off of 6 to 7. That leaves me, 2 to 3 hours. I can put up a recipe in that time. Absolutely.
Perfect. I love it.
All right. I think it's a good spot to end.
Awesome. I will, I'm probably going to post this somewhere. Just going to post it.
Yeah, definitely do. Yeah, I would like to post it as like I don't know if we're on a podcast form, but I would like to get it out that way too. I'm sure my mom would love to hear stuff like this.
I will, yeah, I'll do that.
Like,
I'm looking up podcasting, like, promotion, like, software that pushes it out to all the podcasting networks right now.
Perfect. Yeah, my mom's like, I hardly get to see you anymore, so she either comes to work from the other house. I was like, hey, now you can listen to me.
Now you can listen to all my opinions. I'm sure you want to hear more of that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I will get on it so that you can get on it. We can grow from there.
Perfect. I'm heading to work now, actually. It's 11 o'clock, heading towards the weekend, so I'm heading to work. And keep me posted on on when you push this out or whatever you get it out to. Or if you need any help on that aspect also.
Perfect. Sounds good. Yeah, I'll probably text you with some questions and stuff.
All right, good. Dude, I'm excited.
I'm pumped. Let's get to it.
Hell yeah. All right, brother.
All right.
Love you, dude.
Love you too. Talk to you later.
Peace.